Good morning. Welcome back to the tavern and the Oasis. It's Saturday, September 20th, 2020. And I've got a little bit of work to do today. Promised you yesterday a brief tour of the Oasis and what kind of shape it's in before I get working today. So that's what I'm going to do. Give you a bit of a tour. Show you what we have happening, what's on the agenda. Try to record some of what we're going to be doing today, and just give you a showcase of pretty much everything in it. And don't know, I'm going to have to start covering some of the tips and tricks I've learned this summer from my first year at the Oasis, because your first year in a garden is going to be your craziest year. You're going to plant things where you think they should go, and only to find out, oops, shouldn't be there. You'll get some crop out of it, but you won't get the best crop. That's what I'm learning. I mean, I'm getting an amazing tomato crop, but I would have probably twice the tomato crop if I'd have planted them a little better. Squashes, I'd have even better on the squashes if I'd have planted them a little better. Strawberries, they would have been fantastic if a deer hadn't snuck in here a few times and cropped them down for me. So that one there is not my fault. Strawberries got the right spot. Raspberries are doing great. They're on their second berry, even though it's really late in the season for another batch of raspberries. You know, I learned a few things about things like kale and such, and I'll showcase a bit of that this morning as I give it a good walkthrough on the Oasis, and show you what I've done for some winter crops that I'm hoping to get, and see how it all goes. I mean, one of the main ideas behind the Oasis was, of course, when the scamdemic started and everyone was panicking, and the more I learned about our food supplies and everything, it was imperative to have a producing garden, even if it couldn't produce all my food yet, to produce a large chunk of it to start saving money. And this is something you need to do if you have any space available, even if you can do it on your balcony. It's like I have my balcony at my apartment downtown, and on that balcony I have plants growing. I'm not producing a whole lot there because container gardening is a whole lot harder than gardening in a raised garden beds. Container gardening takes a little bit more attention, soils, watering, a whole lot more. Right size containers, I realize that some plants don't do well in small containers, so it's all a learning experience. At any rate, let's get the Oasis opened and give you a tour. Well, let's give you the tour first, then we'll get the Oasis opened. Off we go. Now here's something I haven't done since I started building the Oasis, and that is a good scan from the far corner here to show you everything that is here and in the way now. So looking down first, we take a good look at the kiwi plant down here, which has been doing quite well. It's gotten its vines out for the first year. It's established on the fence. Next year it'll do fantastic. Hopefully we'll get flowers. You know, we got the pear tree here. It's survived the summer, put out new growth. It's all good. Dead ahead, you can see the green area. That's for the greenhouse, and we're working on the foundation this weekend for it. And so by a couple of weeks, we will start building up the walls and get that greenhouse completed. Maybe with a little luck by the end of September, October, middle of October most likely. Although I'm going hunting in October, so. Okay, and scanning across, you can see all the beds. Everything's really quite full. Lots of sunflowers. You know, the paths came out a lot better than I'd anticipated. You know, when we get over, and you can see the deck now interferes with the view over that direction. It's got a blue tarp on it right now because we can't get the vinyl on, and it's been raining again. We're back into slightly damp weather, and we don't want the wood to get damaged before we get the vinyl on it. But this is what the Oasis looks like from the corner. It's a bit scattered right now, but as it goes, you clean it up, you mess it up, you clean it up, you mess it up. Okay, let's pick it up and go for a walk. Okay, walk all over the top of what the greenhouse is going to be. Look at some of the sunflowers along the way. Straight ahead, got the Lemon Boy tomato. That plant produced beautifully. If I had properly built something to run that plant up onto a pole or a support of some sort, I would have gotten even more tomatoes, I think. You know, I could have let it vine out a few times. Got a pumpkin down here. I've never actually successfully grown pumpkin before, but it looks like I might actually get it pulled off this year. Kale. This is something interesting. I didn't know about kale. As you pluck, especially the red Russian or the purple kale here, and it looks like even the red Russian, the white Russian, once they get growing, you just keep plucking the bottom leaves, and it just keeps growing and getting taller and taller and taller. I'm going to see how long I can keep plucking kale leaves. And kale, prepared really well, is good. Plus, I've got some mustard greens growing, which I wish I'd planted much earlier in the year so I could get mustard seed, but it is what it is. You mix kale with mustard greens, oh, it's just delish. And we got here the Jubilee tomato. It looks like we got a ripe one here and a couple more down here. So this one here, again, another tomato plant if I'd have planted better. See, I planted my tomatoes in multiple beds, which was really a mistake. Echinacea, I've already harvested that. You've seen that throughout the summer as it bloomed. It was really quite good. You know, I've got some ginger down in this pot here, and it's growing really well, but I've got ginger in assorted areas. Got my chamomile, which came in late, so it didn't get nearly as good as I wanted, and then it's got some, comfrey. That's what that is, that big old comfrey, which is a really excellent medicinal herb, along with a green mulch that you can add. And that gets to be a big plant if you plant it right. I'm transplanting it out of that pot. It was a volunteer. Got my blackberries here and a watermelon plant, which is growing. I don't think I'm going to get any watermelon out of it. It's too late in the year. But we'll let it go, see what happens. Blackberries, you can see some of the leaves have been plucked off of them. That was the last deer that got in sometime last week. I put up new barriers on the fence line to help keep the deer out, hopefully permanently now. Purple sage down here, which was again late, but next year it'll be fantastic. My corn crop, I got this in the right spot. And this one was kind of unique because this bed was originally all onions. And as I learned, now this is a really cool idea that you might try. You plant your onions, and because corn needs to be seeded directly, and you plant your corn seeds at about the time your onions are growing up, you plant the corn in between the onions. And as the corn grows up, the onions become harvestable, so you harvest your onions, and then you have corn. And what I've also done is I've added beans back in here, so that beans are going in where the corn is now, and the beans are coming up and they're starting to wrap around the corn stalk. So I'll get beans late in the year. So this one I managed to do right, but only through research of doing other things. Plum tree, I'll be harvesting the few plums the tree has after the massive butchering I did to all the plum trees this year. It's like they were really overgrown and I had to butcher them back. You know, our compost bin, which is doing really quite well for the most part. Lots going on with that. I got to turn it again. Beans back here, you can see that the deer harvested the leaves for me, but at least they left me the beans, so I'll harvest those beans later. It's a purple green bean, which is really tasty. You know, got the other kiwi plant down here, which is doing good. Cilantro, which is covered in a spider web. I've got so many spiders in this yard. I need to attract some critter that loves to eat spiders. I've got lots of them here. The grass patio. Oh, and it's got a fairy ring. Let's take a look. Look at the fairy ring. I think it's cool. Other people, fairy rings say they're so bad, but I just think it's cool and awesome. Let's see, there's my fairy ring. Right there, one fairy ring. May not be the best thing for the grass, but what do I care? I just think it's cool. All my plant starts, which get watered when we water the grass, because we've been keeping the grass well watered. Oh, there's the deer prints from when the deer came through. I wondered what bed he went through. That is not fresh. Yeah. At least I hope that's not fresh. This is the Acuta plant, and we do have some here that are of length. Where'd he go? Yeah, this is I see them, then they're gone. See them, then they're gone. There's one right there. This is a really odd plant. It's over there. A couple more tomato plants. You can see I've got lots of tomatoes on it. Again, proper support. And for my lemon cucumber here, again, proper support. I just let it vine out because I needed the things. This is a really cool plant. I'll let you figure out what that one is. Growing it for a buddy. I don't smoke it, but I love the plant. It's so pretty, and they smell so good. Yeah, there we go. There's our big one, nice and big and growing. So this vine here, wrong place for it, man. This thing grows feet. I'll be putting that along the back fence line next year. Again, more tomatoes. Sunflowers everywhere. I grew some huge sunflowers. You look at that bad boy. That's like 15 feet up in the air. You know, so crazy vine. This is my artichoke. I'm letting it bloom because I wanted to see what the bloom looked like. Next year I'll harvest it and eat it, but this year I wanted to see the bloom. More ginger. This is some winter crops I've got going. These are cabbages. So I'm going to grow them in pots and see how they do. I had some extra ones. I didn't have a garden space for them because I now know how big cabbage gets. And I figure this pot should be big enough to contain each plant. You know, these are my herbs, my potted herbs. You want to pot your herbs. I've always known that, and I did do that. See, again, with the zucchinis, this is the yellow zucchini here. You can see down in there. The big one that I'm saving for seed, to get the seed off of it. I've been really big on trying to save seed this year. That was one of the big things I've been doing. I've managed to save seed from many different types of plants. My lone pepper down there. Look at that. Poor lonely boy. But it's ripening up, so. Spaghetti squash has done really well. I didn't do half bad where I planted this, and then I ran the vine out around the bed. The one problem I've encountered, of course, is that now it makes it difficult to get to the bed without damaging that, to get to all the tomatoes that are ripening up in this bed. And you can just see tomatoes everywhere in this bed. Lettuces that aren't doing so good. Got some leeks in here I planted for winter. Not sure. These might be beets down here. Might be, could be a weed too. It's really kind of tough to tell. But my raspberries, you can see, second crop. I didn't expect a second crop. I didn't realize these were ever bearing. So we get more raspberries. Another handful. Won't get enough to freeze or store. My strawberry bed is looking good. Surprised the deer that got in last week didn't come in and eat all the strawberries down again. But it did walk over here and eat my sweet potatoes that I'm trying to grow in the pot. This was an experiment. I expected it to fail, but who knows. And the strawberries are looking pretty good. Got their leaves going nicely. A few berries in there I'll get today. You know, cucumber over there, which again, it would have been better to run it up and have it on a vine supported. Would have got better cucumbers. My garlic, you know, the garlic this year was, what we planted was garlic from store-bought garlic. So it was a different kind of experiment in that I didn't have any garlic seed or garlic starts or garlic proper good quality garlic. I got a bunch for it this coming year. So, and that gets planted in October. Of course, this garlic didn't get planted until May. I think it was May or June, late May or almost June. So of course it's late. I have harvested a few bulbs that matured early, and they have been really, really good. But I had two different types of garlic in here, both hardneck and softneck. I have no idea what type of garlic they were, just the store-bought stuff. So your standard garlic. But they are good, and they're much better tasting when you grow them than when you buy them. And my mustard. And this is a really good mustard. I don't know what type it is. All I know is it has a good spiciness to it. And when, as I said, mixed with kale, it tastes very good. And this one here, it's gone to seed on me. Flowered. It looks like it goes to seed pod pretty fast. So, you can see the seed pods there. So, it looks like I will get some mustard seed, not enough. It's like I want a bunch of mustard seeds so I can, one, have mustard seed for different things, but I want to make my own mustard. And this is how you get it. So next year I'll plant even more mustard, probably use the side beds for things like that. My Brussels sprouts, which are doing pretty decently for the most part. You can see them down in here, maybe. Yeah, there we go. There's the Brussels sprouts, and they're growing up. I got to do some pruning on these, and as I learned, I have ways to help make them grow better. I have carrots in the ground. We're leaving the carrots in the ground and plucking them as we need, because they'll survive all winter long, which is good. And there's lots of carrots here. We don't use a lot of carrots, but we do use a few. As I've let lettuce go to seed, I'm collecting that and see how that goes. The radishes, I've collected a bunch of radish seed from those 3 radishes. They produce so much. And they still seem to keep producing and producing and producing. And these little seed pods, if you get them when they're young and tender, before they start to dry and harden, they are really, really quite tasty. And if you like radish, but you don't like the bite of radish, eat the seed pods, because it tastes just like a radish, but it doesn't have that bite of a radish. And this is just, it didn't work out. I planted wildflowers here. Although the wildflowers we got some really cool colored poppies, which are doing well. The ferns that I planted in there that I thought had died come back to life. So this is going to be pretty cool over the winter, because all these weeds will die down and those ferns will start kicking up. The apple tree has been doing really well. It's got lots of growth. I've got to get it woven through here. I've got to get rid of these dahlias. I didn't realize dahlias got so bloody big. I won't be planting them here again next year. We'll go somewhere else with them. They're nice. And the one lone apple on the tree, which is getting ripe. So, got a bit to do. Another experiment I'd done was back here behind it. I planted a runner bean. Big ass runner bean. Let's go to the other side so we can actually take a look at this runner bean. Let's see, this big runner bean here. So it's a big drying type of bean. So we'll see what happens with it. Got a couple of plums in this tree. There's a few plums in every tree. Cherry trees come out quite nicely. Along here we've got the rhubarb, which we'll get another harvest of the rhubarb before the season's out. Probably end up having to freeze it. I've built up my workstation back here for doing potting and other miscellaneous things. It's still got a ways to go. I've still got to remove that big ash tree. That'll be a springtime thing. We thought we'd get to it this summer, but we never did. As you can see, I put in extra beds here for the flowers next year, because I learned you don't want the flowers in with the plants themselves directly. One, it interferes with the space you have for growing food. So I started putting in extra flower beds in front of several of the beds, so that I can plant the flowers I need to attract all the pollinators. So that's a pretty good walkthrough of the Oasis, except for one last bed back here. One with the Black Prince tomato. This is a really tasty tomato, and it's an heirloom, so I've been saving seeds from it. Got a split one here. That's one thing I noticed, it tends to split its tomatoes real quick for some reason. I have to research on that. Got lemongrass growing. You know, another one of those medicinal herb plants, the holy herb as it's called on the No Agenda show. And this is fennel, which for the longest time I couldn't identify the bloody thing. It's like, what is that bloody thing growing there? It was because my mother had it planted, and she didn't even remember what it was when it was planted. Finally, I let it grow. I've harvested a lot of it, and I'm letting it go to seed to see if I can get some fennel seed. Because fennel seed's needed in lots of things. And again, you can see I've got ginger. This was the first place I planted ginger, which means I've probably got a good ginger root going down there, which will be nice when I go to harvest that. I have my own ginger. So that's everything at the Oasis. I'll stop and pay homage to the predator and the prey. You know, so this is where the Oasis is at the moment. As I said, it's September. We're coming near the end of the growing season, and I've got my winter stuff in. You know, I didn't talk about my winter stuff. I did talk about the cabbage in the pots, but I didn't talk about, you know, I've got lettuce, some really good romaine lettuce there. We skipped over that to the strawberries. Plus, I've also planted some Walla Walla onions. Now, I've got to make sure I pay attention to this, because what's going to happen is these onions are going to overwinter, and then next year they'll ripen. Now, I tried 2 different ways just to deal with an argument, and I seem to be missing a couple of onions there. There should be 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And, oh, there's 6. Okay. And I planted some singly, and I planted some as bunches. And I want to see what happens when they grow up as a bunch versus when they grow up individually. Because I've seen some YouTube videos, I can't remember what it was, about growing onions in bunches and letting them bulb up, push out against each other. They still bulb up, and you just pluck them out as the bigger bulbs appear, and then it leaves more room for the smaller bulbs. So I wanted to see if I can grow more onions in a smaller space. So as you can see, this is not an overly big Oasis. I've got a lot of beds here. All told, I've done the math on my beds. I've got maybe close to 400 square feet of growing space with all my beds. So I've got to maximize that. So I've got to have paths in between. I've got to have side beds. But I'm trying to maximize what I can grow and how much I can harvest. And I've done an okay job of it this last summer. But again, I haven't been doing this kind of stuff in 30 years. And a lot of knowledge has come out in the last 30 years about what you can do, how you can do things. There's so many people sharing their knowledge and tips. I mean, the wonderful thing about the internet now, with YouTube and whatnot, is this, all those tips and other stuff, that was information people had, but they only were able to share it with their neighbors or the people in the next county over, and only if those people were willing to listen to it did it help. But now you can go search out anything you want as far as information goes and get the information knowledge. You might not be able to apply it very effectively at first, but having that knowledge and experimenting with it and learning how to apply it the same way the person giving it to you applies it is a reward unto itself. And you end up being rewarded with foodstuffs, life-sustaining stuff. First year, not enough to completely feed the family, but it definitely put a dent in the amount of groceries having to be bought. I mean, I've already learned how to can. I've canned up, well, so far my tomato crops a month with just what I've taken home. I've canned up 10 quarts of tomatoes, which isn't too bad. You know, that's all right. And I've still got another 30 pounds of tomatoes to come here. It's kind of cool tomato sauce too, because it's orange. So I just combined the red and the yellow tomatoes, and of course red, yellow, you get orange. So I got orange tomato sauce, which I'll be eating up on these foodstuffs this year. All right, well, let's get the Oasis opened up, and we'll try to record a few things.
Hot rock rhythm sounds so cool. Hot rock rhythm's all I need. Hot rock rhythm ain't no use. Hot rock rhythm really turns me loose.
Well, it was moving along quite nicely. Rain started up. Pissing rain right now. Hopefully it's a short-lived storm. Rain burst. Pretty overcast, so it's kind of hard to tell. Listen quietly, you can hear it. Oh, there it is, lightening up again. So with a little luck, finish up on this foundation for the greenhouse today and get that all in place and leveled, and yeah, then in a couple of weeks when I get back, we start building the greenhouse. So been looking forward to this one all summer, ever since I ordered the greenhouse, which last time I checked, just out of curiosity, they're still on back order. So a lot of people trying to do the things we do. You want to know more about it? Check out Agenda 2030 or the Ice Age Farmer or the Urban Farmer, and those guys there tell you all about what's happening with the well, we're currently rolling into the grand solar minimum, and what's going to happen and why you need a greenhouse pretty much anywhere, not in the real southern states, but everything up here in the northern areas. This being the Pacific Northwest or the Southwest of Canada. Pacific Southwest. I guess I'm in the Pacific Southwest. Although it sounds much cooler to say Pacific Southwest than Pacific Northwest. But we got a lot of rain, and the worst thing for your crops will be not so much the shortened growing seasons or sun, but the amount of rain as it comes, flooding things out, drowning stuff. So, it is what it is. Rain's lightening up again. I'll be able to get right back at it and showcase what's happening. That's all we got.
I took off my overcoat, iced down my rum and coke, and it ain't helping when you're sitting next to me. Girl, I can hardly breathe. You got me mad. just you? You got my heart beating like a fire alarm screaming, and I can't stop it, don't wanna stop it. Keep looking at me that way. This place might go up in flames. Look what you started, let's get it started. Is it hot in here, or is it just you? Got your jeans so tight, I'm losing my cool. Fever feels like 102. Is it hot in here, or is it just you? Girl, what you got, got? What you got? It's so hot, hot, hot. It's so hot. Girl, what you got, got? Girl, what you got? It's so hot, hot, hot. It's so hot. Girl, what you got, got? Girl, what you got? It's so hot, hot, hot. It's so hot. Girl, what you got, got? What you got? It's so hot, hot, hot. Is it hot in here, or is it just you? Got your jeans so tight, I'm losing my cool. Fever feels like 102. Is it hot in here? Is it hot in here, or is it just you? Got your jeans so tight, I'm losing my cool. Fever feels like 102. Is it hot in here? Is it hot in here, or is it just you?